Hello, and welcome to On the Irregular with me, Java Berry, a podcast where I chat to women from all walks of life about their own unique creative journey, how they got here, how their story has shaped their creative work, what they've learned, what has helped them, and where they plan to go from here. It's an irregular journey for so many of us, and I am delighted to offer a platform to share these fascinating stories and wells of wisdom. In this episode, I talk to the journalist and author Amy Liptrot. Amy grew up in Orkney before moving to London in her 20s to pursue a career as a journalist. Her memoir, The Outrun, is an account of her alcoholism during this time, her recovery, and the pull between the island and the city. The book won her the PEN Ackley Prize, the Wainwright Prize, has been translated into 15 languages, is a Sunday Times bestseller, and is currently being made into a film starring Saoirse Ronan. But it wasn't easy getting here. We talk about Amy's initial career expectations, her writing process, and her forthcoming book, The Instant, published on March 3rd, 2022. We of course also managed to fit in talking about swimming outdoors and the full moon. Amy is a friend and lives locally, so for our chat we decided to go on a walk through the fields to Amy's favourite tree, accompanied by her youngest child strapped to her back. Welcome to episode 2 of On the Irregular, with lovely Amy's dulcet tones against the backdrop of the West Yorkshire fields. Well, thank you for giving me your morning.
My pleasure. Yeah, it's nice to be asked.
Yeah.
I listened to some, not listen to all of them, but I listened to some of the episodes, and one of them I was listening to, and it started me thinking, like, what would my answers be to this? So,
Oh, that's good.
Then it was shortly after that you asked me.
Yeah, I guess what instigated it was that I was asking myself those questions and sharing, and I thought I'd really love to hear other people's answers to these questions and hear what they've got to say. And it's so interesting, kind of like the themes that come up and the common feelings and thoughts on a lot of them, but then also totally unique.
Yes, I was born and grew up in the Orkney Islands at the north of Scotland, on a sheep farm. Although my parents are English, so I've not got a real Orcadian accent. People are surprised that I don't speak with a strong Scottish accent, but that's because my folks are English. So even though I grew up there, I think I was a little bit of an outsider, which is a good viewpoint for being a writer, I always think, to have one foot in and one foot out. But yeah, had a pretty free childhood on the farm, which is beside the cliffs, beside the Atlantic in Scotland. But when I was a teenager, I certainly wanted to leave. Like the things that I was interested in certainly didn't go on in the Scottish Islands.
I can imagine, yeah.
I was interested in music and art and books, and wanted to get away as soon as I could. I guess I was quite a good student at school, and I got a place at Edinburgh University.
How big was the school in Orkney?
There's 2 secondary schools in Orkney.
Okay.
So there's a population of about 20,000 in all the islands.
Right.
So it's not as small as some people might think.
Yeah.
We lived on what we call the mainland, which is the biggest island, and then there were like 30 other islands, ranging from hundreds of people to one family. So it's a group of islands.
Wow. And so you got a place at uni at Edinburgh. You said that you were torn between studying literature. Was it English literature?
Yeah, that's what I ended up doing. But I certainly, I couldn't decide whether I wanted to study more academic literature or go to art school, which was, I did some art at school, but then I think I did paintings and stuff, and I often ended up writing lines of text over them. So, I think that's what made me decide to go.
Because did you paint? I feel like I've seen paintings of birds on big barn doors.
I'd still like to do the odd kind of art craft project, and that was one recent one, well, a few years ago.
It's not a small project.
But I think when I did move to Edinburgh, I ended up hanging around the art school as much as possible, and my housemates were art students. It's just going across the stepping stones.
I think I'm just going to accept my feet are going to get wet here.
And I met someone in London who introduced me to someone that I had gone to art school with him, and I was really chuffed because my deception was complete that I managed to hang around there so much that people actually thought that
you'd actually been to art school.
Yeah. I was just sort of always attracted to that kind of world, I suppose.
I think that kind of almost feels like you got the best of both worlds there. You managed to study something academic whilst having the art school social life.
Yeah.
And then the freedom to just carry on being creative however you wished. This way.
Yeah.
So then how did you end up in London from Edinburgh?
I think I always kind of thought I might move to London. It was where the music press was, and the style press, and the centre of things. And I think when I was a student, what I thought was I wanted to be was a journalist. And I was really involved with the student newspaper in Edinburgh, and put more work into that than I did into my degree, definitely. And that was brilliant. I loved it. Met a lot of good friends there. I was the editor of that in my final year, and that was kind of like the high point of my working life for quite a long time. So I was always trying to recreate that atmosphere of the team there. But yeah, I did a couple of internships. I went down to London and I was an intern at the Face magazine back in the early 2000s.
That is the height of coolness. Oh my god, I used to, because in Barcelona you could get it in like specific shops, and I would treasure any copy.
I remember the moment when I saw the advert for interns in the back of the magazine, and I just saw it and thought, I'm going to do that. And it was one of those moments where you can feel your life changing.
Yes.
Like, I've got what it takes to put in that application and get that, and I'm able to do it, and that's what I'm going to do.
Oh my god, that's so exciting.
Yeah. So I really thought I was the bee's knees.
I bet you bloody did.
That was before my, in between my third and fourth year at university, going off down to London for the summer.
Wow.
But I think that kind of gave me unrealistic expectations of the kind of job that I'd be able to get out of uni.
Okay.
Because I didn't manage to get a job in the media for quite a few years after that.
Yeah. That's the thing as well about like unpaid gigs. It's like you're doing this great work, but
and I started getting. I got the odd article in, but just not enough to make a living at by any means.
Yeah, of course.
Went home to Orkney for a bit, worked as a cleaner, but I started getting a few little like music reviews and stuff in the press. So that I was like, this is enough. I'm moving to London. I'm moving to London to be a writer. And I had various temp jobs in London, office jobs, working in the lost cars department of Haringey Council, working in the post office, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I was trying to become a freelance kind of arts journalist.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the thing was, I was also becoming more and more alcoholic. That was so I really when I was a student I'd managed to fairly successfully balance partying and working, but as each year went on the drinking got more and the writing got less for quite a long time, for every year of my 20s I think. And I'd had this sort of potential, I guess, when I was a student, and
we're going up this way.
Yes, the steep way.
Yeah.
And I felt quite frustrated when I sort of saw my peers who were like getting proper jobs and getting published, and I felt that I wasn't really at all.
Yeah.
I was losing jobs and getting knocked back, and but I didn't deserve to get those jobs because I was unreliable and sloppy.
That must have been hard as well, kind of like you said, having come from being editor of the newspaper and then having these internships and it being very exciting and feeling like this is what the future holds. And then for it to not actually work out like that for a while.
Yeah, I find myself back at my parents and doing different temp jobs, and I had a few different jobs, like writing journalism jobs, but not the kind of subject area that I was so interested in. I worked for a corporate communications company for a few years.
Yeah.
And I worked for like industry magazines. I worked for a magazine.
You're right.
Yeah, carrying this baby up the hill is quite...
How much does he weigh?
He weighs 12 kilos.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
The frost is pretty, isn't it, on the oak leaves?
It's lovely.
It's funny to think back to these times. There's probably lots I'm missing out. But yeah, I worked for a magazine about the health and safety industry.
Oh, that must be fascinating.
Yeah. But I kept getting fired because of my drinking, basically.
Right.
Yeah, which I'm laughing about it now, but it was not fun times.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh, is it deer? No, it's not. Is it deer?
No, it's a dog.
It's a big dog.
Oh, but it's got like its ears
like a deer,
look
doesn't it?
deer-like. Yeah.
I can see the sun up there. We're going into the sun.
Yeah, I'm already roasting. I love this bit. Just...
Yeah, the silver birch.
Yeah.
There's always a point in the valley where I feel like when you come up, there's just a point where you get out of the shadow of the other side, and suddenly it's like the blinkers come off.
That's why I try and walk every day, is because otherwise you just live in shadow all day long. It's like you just have to get up high, at least just for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's so good.
The bulbs have started flowering in our windowsill actually. And so then you mentioned about how a lot of your writing you learnt through writing your diaries.
Yeah. I started writing, keeping diaries and secret notebooks when I was about 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never stopped. A lot of people, it's something that they do when they're a teenager.
Yeah.
And I certainly did, but most people kind of stop it, but rather embarrassingly I've just kept going.
You say embarrassingly, but it's not though, is it? It's wonderful.
And that, I think that's where I found my voice, just writing these screeds of journals. And then in my first book there's quite a lot of lines that come out of diaries from like 10 years earlier. You know, I really went through a process of sifting through all my teenage diaries to get for the outrun.
That's so fantastic to have that material there. That's just like a bank of material to draw on. Because I was similar. I started writing diaries as soon as I could learn to write and read, so I must have been about 6 or 7. And my grandmother really encouraged me to write them, and I carried on through childhood and then through teens. But then the ones that I wrote in my teens were so full of angst and awful poetry. I burnt them all, and I'm so sad.
Oh, that makes me feel a bit ill.
Yeah, exactly. I just think, you know, there was, even though I felt like I wanted to shed what I was feeling and that I'd written in those diaries, it's so sad that I couldn't just you know, park them in a box and then revisit them years later. Because even though it was bad poetry and bad drawings, you know, it was still, it's your life, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I find it pretty cringy to look back even beyond about a year ago. But I like to know that they're there.
Yeah.
And I think I did have a picture when I was a kid of like when I was older and having this like stack of journals.
Yeah.
So sort of visualised it.
Which you must have now.
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
Yeah, a big box full.
It's such a good exercise. You write every day?
Pretty much, yeah. You just write a page a day.
Yeah.
And it's just a habit now that I do.
That's so lovely, because then also your kids will be able to read back on their childhood.
Maybe. Yeah. And I guess and I do know now that I'm quite often develop it, so I have a bit of an eye for that when I'm writing them. Like there's a little episode in the day that I think I might use at a later stage. I just try and remember the details. And I try not to let always the sort of temptation with the diary is to turn into sort of moaning about stuff.
Yeah.
So I try not to do that, and I try to concentrate a lot on sort of physical details and small moments and interesting things that people say to me. I kind of have a way of not just trying to be fairly positive, I suppose. Yeah, just kind of more like I try and get some concrete details in there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I guess it's just quite not formulaic, but I can just do it quite easily now.
Well, like you said, sifting for moments. And
and then I will. Yeah, and that's a lot of my work has come through going back through my diaries and looking for a particular subject and getting all the material about that. I have a very very labour-intensive, slow writing method that involves doing lots of drafts in taking notes and then putting it together in documents and then printing it out and scrolling all over it by hand and typing it back in. So I write very slowly, with using big use of a copy and paste function. I don't write sort of fluently from A to Z.
Yeah.
And it all comes together. I've realised the power of the editing.
Well, I was just going to say, what you've described to me sounds a lot like editing.
Yeah. Quite often my first drafts are pretty bitty, and then through the editing process they become, oh, it's lovely up here, sunshine on frosty grass. Yeah, that was nice.
Gosh, it's like arriving in a new world.
Yeah, we've come out of the shadow of the valley where we live
into glowing sunshine and blue skies.
And this is the same tree that you're thinking of?
I need to see it from that direction.
Okay.
Whether it is or not, it's a beautiful tree.
Yeah. It's an ash tree with a ribbon trunk.
A ribbon trunk?
I think that's what you call it when the trunk goes in two.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what it is.
And so because of course you had huge success with the outrun, Had that been something that you'd considered, because you were talking about how you really wanted to be working in journalism and that's the path that you thought? Did you have a book in mind?
Yeah, I was sort of focused on being a journalist, and I even got a job as a news reporter, but actually back home in Orkney for a while. I was a really bad journalist. I just didn't have a nose for a story at all. It wasn't hard line enough at getting information out of people and fact checking. But I think I had an idea that I was capable of writing a novel, and I think I used to tell people when I was pissed that I was writing a novel. Mm-hmm. In fact, I met someone who I didn't remember who I'd met when I was drunk more recently, and he said, "How's the novel coming along?" So I must have told people it was something I used to speak about, and indeed I did make a start at one when I was still drinking, but I never got very far because for me there's a very small sweet spot you can write when you're drinking, and after that it kind of descends into rubbish and it's really hard to pick up again. But I had some fragments around, and actually a few of those fragments did end up in the outrun, some little bits. But then what happened? The outrun kind of came out of two different pieces of work, which was one was a blog that I kept while I was in rehab, and the second one was I moved back to Orkney and I started writing. I started off as a blog, but it ended up being these columns on a nature website.
Ah, yes, I remember.
Called Caught by the River.
Yeah.
And the first one was about repairing dry stone walls on my dad's farm. Mm-hmm. And the second one was about finding a dead whale washed up. And there was one about working on the farm at lambing time. And these nature island life columns, combined with the blog from rehab, that was really the basis of the outrun.
Yeah.
And I just worked from there. And the two kind of styles it combined was like my more kind of technical background as a journalist, mm-hmm. but then my diaries as well, and that's those two styles together. So
yeah,
I think that's what it was.
Like memoir and journalism. It's a potent combination.
Yeah, and I just kind of struck, I think, on a style that worked for me and that was readable. Mm-hmm. That kind of readers followed me through my journey of learning about the world, and through that they were able to learn about the world, mm-hmm. In a kind of readable way. But yeah, it took 2 winters to write it, and even though a lot of the material I'd had for years, it got published and I couldn't believe it, and got good reviews and sold quite a lot of copies, and still can't get over it like 6 years later.
All around the world. It's been translated into several languages, isn't it?
Yeah. 15 languages, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been absolutely. It's like what you dream would happen when you write a book.
Yeah.
And I was proud of the book when I finished it. I thought it was good, but I didn't know that all this would happen. And then a lot of my life, the last few years, has been sort of like communicating with readers. People get in touch with me who've read it, or doing stuff that's involved with the onward life of the book, like I'm speaking to a Russian magazine next week because it's doing quite well in Russia and stuff like that.
That's just so.
Yeah.
I love the things that in a way you could never really predict or expect. I'm big in Russia.
Yeah. Yeah. I get quite a few messages from Russian readers. Is he asleep?
He's just kind of zoning out and drooling a little
quiet
bit.
Anyway.
Yeah. So this is your dream. Wow.
Yeah.
It's far more majestic than the one that I was thinking.
Okay.
I think I was possibly thinking of one that we walked past back then. It's like a tiny little scratch. It might even be that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think it was the loneliness of that tree appealed to me somehow.
Spot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just quite in the spring.
I bet I was thinking that because it's bare.
Well, the leaves don't come out until quite late on this one. Mm-hmm. And then, but in the springtime, it's a nice sort of meadow here.
Yeah.
You can sit. It's got a great view down the valley, Sidley Pike.
Yeah, Sidley Pike, Hepton Stall.
Yeah. Oh, I'm warm. I've got too many clothes on.
I know, me too. How are you, Ivor? It's so lovely, his blonde curls against the blue sky.
Yeah, thinking that sort of the podcast is about kind of irregular routes, and I'm talking about the book doing well, but which makes it sound like it sort of came easy. But
No.
I suppose it didn't. I think it took me, well, what felt at the time like a long time to find my voice as a writer.
Yeah.
And I think even when I look back to that, the blog that I wrote in rehab, it's quite a different voice. It's sort of me. I'm quite trying to crack lots of jokes and be quite sort of ironic and detached and sort of like this, like kind of music press kind of sarcastic voice. And I think it took me like going back to Orkney and kind of looking at where I grew up to kind of develop this more kind of lyrical, sort of earnest voice, really, which wasn't what I wanted to be. I wanted,
and quite sensitive.
I think I thought that I was too cool for that. Which I find interesting, how you find your voice, and also the voice that I tend to stick to as a writer is not quite me, how I'm talking to you now. It's a slightly more kind of arrogant or sort of like omnipotent kind of kind of knowledgeable, confident voice, I think, in my writing. And then I think people, when they meet me, I'm more kind of hesitant and self-deprecating and probably a bit disappointing in real life. That's my general fear, is that people who've read my books are going to be disappointed when they meet me in real life.
I hardly think that's
this
true.
Is what goes on in my head all the time when I meet readers of the book. I just think, oh dear.
I can understand. I suppose when you've had such success with something as well, that and people respond to it, it's but you feel, well, it's still just me. It's just me. And
and in writing, you're able to craft things very well.
Exactly.
And this is my best version of what I want to say, and I don't come out with paragraphs like that. All the time, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's an edited version of you and your thoughts. And
I guess that's why we write, isn't it? Because we're able to express in there things that we can't express in conversation or face to face. And that's why we read as well, to get that full picture of how someone sees the world. But that's why it's very exposing to put stuff out there, because it's sort of like it's fixed then. I feel like in real life, when we meet people, we're always slightly altering how we communicate, and what you call that, code switching. But then when you've written something, that's one fixed version. So everybody who this is what when the book was being published, or my new book's going to be published, everyone, like you, but also my mum, or people that I've worked with, or some other members of my family, they all might read it, and I can't change, and you have to be quite strong.
Yes, I see what you mean.
Do you see what I mean?
Like, for example, like when you meet people, and like I notice that with my accent will often change depending on who I'm talking to, because you kind of like adapt to communicate. But like you say, if you just put something out there, it just stands alone. And people respond to it in their own individual way,
and you can't alter it, and that's what's quite scary about it. And also with my writing, with my new book, I take some risks, and with my new book I've taken some risks, both emotional risks and kind of artistic risks as well. And I think that's often what you need to do to make something good, but then it is a risk that it might not work. People it might be unsuccessful or embarrassing. So it is, and I'm before the publication of The Outrun, and right now, shortly before my second book's going to be published, start to feel really bonkers. And I've heard other writers tell me that similar thing as well, because you suddenly realise that it's other people are going to read it, which sounds silly, but
because it's been living inside you, and you've been working. I guess you have a relationship with it over that time, and then you're, oh God, it must feel very raw.
and I keep thinking, oh, why have I done this? Even with the outrun, even with the good reception that it nearly completely got, I just thought, why have I written about my family? Can I take it back? I feel so embarrassed. And then dispersed with feeling sort of pride and connection. But yeah, it doesn't come naturally, maybe.
To share, because you're not naturally kind of like an oversharer in that sense.
Maybe not, no. But in my particular writing, well, I think it maybe gives with my new book as well, it might give an impression of being confessional, but actually it's highly selective and crafted. Yeah. I see it as, I'm a writer. I'm not someone who has had a interesting life. Or do you see the distinction?
As in that, so you're not like Michael Palin, who's writing about the experiences that he's had, or
somebody that's written like a book about a difficult childhood, because that's just a story that they want. How I would see it is, I'm a writer and then I use the material of my life, which is a slightly different distinction, and that's kind of how I want. I'm hoping that my second book is received, rather than kind of like me kind of telling all about my love life.
Like chapter 2 of the outrun. It's based in Berlin.
It's
do you want to walk? Or?
So after the period of the outrun, I ended up I moved to Berlin for 1 year exactly, and the book is based on my time there. So it's another memoir, but it's quite experimental in form. Each chapter pretty much is kind of an extended metaphor. This is my concept. For instance, there's one chapter that's about being in a techno club, and it's also about swimming underwater. And there's one chapter that's about the digital aftermath of a relationship, but it's also about archaeology. So these are So most chapters kind of have two concepts that kind of dance around each other.
Digital aftermath, so do you mean like scouring through old messages and emails?
Yes, which is something that I have very much struggled with in the past. And when I've mentioned it to other people, I've discovered it's something that a lot of other people have experience of as well. About everything that's left over of a relationship digitally, when you break up, and also about sometimes the difficulty of, either kind of like online stalking somebody, or coming across them online, or all the kind of weirdnesses that the ability to kind of keep tabs on somebody. And for me it was just I kept on looking at an ex's pages, and it was like an addiction. Certainly for me, I have an addictive personality, and that's another manifestation of it. And it's really embarrassing to write about. It's something that it was really a huge problem for me for at different points. Kind of that obsession and that inability to let go. So I thought, this is what I'm obsessed with. This is what keeps coming up in my diaries. I'm going to write about this. I'm going to explore it. But it's embarrassing, particularly as a woman in your 30s, to be talking about this stuff.
But it's so common though. Like you said, I think it's something that we really don't want to admit, but so many of us do.
So I really hope that by kind of exploring that people will connect with it, and and I know it's trivial in terms of the all the things that are going on in the world.
But it's also a reality that we all live with, though, don't we? Our relationship with the digital, in all its forms, social media, WhatsApp.
I find that very interesting to write about, and and broken hearts are the stuff of music and poetry, and I'm trying writing about that in a slightly different form. Yeah, and also in kind of juxtaposition and, well, intertwined with writing about the natural world, which I think a lot of this nature writing and often kind of leaves out certain aspects of people's lives, but I want to put the sex back into nature writing. Yeah. So, yeah. Can we get out here?
Do we walk over that way? I think we walk over that way.
Yeah.
And then, because we can make our way.
Okay.
There is a path that takes us up that way, and then we can go back down past the mill.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll follow you.
Yeah. Oh, there's our neighbour Tess with the dog. Wow. So is that coming out in February?
3rd of March. Yeah, quite
March.
6 weeks time or something.
And then, because you do work as a journalist as well, don't you?
Well, I do the odd book review, or
Down that way.
I guess more kind of first person-y bit rather than anything very hard hitting. I guess I've been lucky enough that doing my own work, I've been able to do that sort of as my only job around having the kids in the last few years.
Yeah. I guess a lot of people know you for your swimming. Feels like you're kind of the poster girl of cold water swimming.
Yeah, everyone's at it now. Yeah, I guess that's what I tend to post about online quite a lot, because it's nice to take a picture when you walk up a hill and at a nice place.
And it's interesting what you're talking about, having an addictive personality, which I can completely relate to, because I always find that with swimming, it feels like it's a complete addiction, because you get a hit.
Yeah, I crave that cold.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I often, as soon as I come out, I just want to go back in again.
That's it, absolutely. Yeah, it's that, and it's a real sensation. But it's kind of it's a healthy one.
Yes. Yeah.
For me, it's quite a major one. That something that replaced alcohol in my life.
Yeah.
And it is something that I use on a special occasion. On my birthday, I'll go for a swim, or if somebody's in town, I'll take them for a dip rather than going to the pub.
Yeah.
I do use it as quite an equivalent.
Yeah.
And then it's something to kind of talk about afterwards, and
you're buzzed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've really found it to be, for me, quite an effective equivalent of taking drugs or whatever, a little bit.
Yeah, I think someone described it to me once as crack, because it's such in a way a short hit.
Yeah.
And so that's why you just keep on going back for more.
Particularly the winter swims, you can get, I feel like, more bang for your buck, because it's so cold that you don't have to be in for very long at all to get that sort of buzz.
Yes.
I think I'm going to go this afternoon, actually, for the full moon is rising.
It is full moon today, isn't it?
At 3:30 or something, so I'm going to go up the hill.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. And it doesn't really... When you get outside, you notice the state of the moon and the wind direction and what's going on with the seasons and temperatures, and that's why I really love it, actually, for that kind of literal immersion in the natural world.
Yeah. That
makes you much more alert to what's going on. And that's what you can go back to the same body of water, and it's different every time.
I think let's go over this way.
I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I know. It's funny, you normally just go, quite like coming out for a walk with someone else, because you just get off your little... I just go on my same...
Yeah, your loops.
Yeah, my little loop.
What a perfect day for a swim. It's the sky, and the moon will probably be up by the afternoon.
Robin, I think he's got to the age where I kind of think this could be an early memory for him, going with his mum to see the full moon rising. Maybe that's a bit. No, it probably won't be what he remembers.
Well, if you write it in your diary,
Yeah.
then you
That's
know.
the bit I can, yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of craft and art of it. If you look on my social media, you probably think that I spend most of my time swimming. Of course I don't, It's like spend most of my time picking up Lego and hanging out washing and all the usual stuff.
Yeah, it's telling a story through moments, hand-picked moments.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm glad it's a good idea to do the interview outside.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because I used to do, John and I used to organise monthly rambles when we lived in Manchester.
Oh, okay.
We had a rambling group called Ramble Pie, and we'd go out for walks. And I think one of the things that I always found really interesting about it was that was the talks.
To get conversations going.
Yeah, the talks you'd have with people just through walking. And often people would come who I didn't know particularly well, who were friends of friends, but then you'd kind of form a connection with them through having this walk. And because the things that would come out and come up and were just so different if you just sat stationary in a pub, and they can become quite intimate because people would break off into pairs or threes. And
is this the tree that you're thinking of? Or?
Yes, possibly. Yeah, I feel like no. I know what it is. It's that one over there with the break in the wall.
Oh,
there was something about the wall and just like this kind of entryway to the tree.
Yeah. Well, that can be your favourite tree. This one can be my favourite tree.
Yeah. We'd have a picnic with entrees at one and main course at the other.
I find walking useful when I'm writing as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's often when I'm out that kind of the cogs are turning and the connection will come together, and I'll have ideas, and I take notes on my phone when I'm out and about. It's important. Part of my practice.
Yeah.
Stomping around these woods and hills and wherever I am.
Yeah, it's like you walk through things and you walk and understand things. Because similar, like lately, I've been feeling a lot of things that I've not really understood, and my instinct is just to walk through them. Okay. Oh, we've hit a gate. No, not a gate, a fence.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if we could get up over that wall, whether we could get over it. Because that looks like it would be a bit of a leap over it.
Oh.
Just thinking of you with Ivor.
Yeah, the path is just over there.
Yeah, so we need to get into that field just so we can get to there. Do you ever record your thoughts?
Like speaking?
Yeah.
No, I don't. It's not something. No, writing is my go-to way.
It's interesting because I know that I've spoken to some writers who record their thoughts, but I sometimes find that as soon as I start talking, the thoughts leave my brain. I can't. Like, there's definitely have to kind of see it written down, and then more comes.
Yeah.
And oh wow, we're in proper bog.
Oh.
Yes, we can get over there. Yeah. Okay. How do your family feel about you having written about them?
Mostly good, I think. I've written about my dad's mental illness, which is something that he's always been open about, and I think as a family, we have talked about stuff like that.
Yeah.
That maybe some other people would be more secretive about. My mum always encouraged my writing. She used to give me like this blank diary at Christmas every year. And I was thinking about how they did sort of give me room to. There was definitely some difficult aspects in my childhood, but generally it was quite happy and free childhood. And for instance, they let me just paint my room in like poster paint and paint the flagstones on the floor with like car spray. Oh my Which when people bought the house, they were like, "Oh, this is terrible." But yeah, they let me do it and paint the keys of the piano and stuff like that.
But that is very free.
Yeah. looking, with kids of my own now, sort of, you think about these things, and I read a lot and wasn't allowed to watch much telly.
Sounds perfect training to be a writer.
And although I didn't realise it for a long time, I just by growing up where I did, I had that sort of relationship with the birds and the weather, and because it was all around me, and I really missed it when I was in the city, I suppose, which it didn't took me a long time to sort of identify the kind of disquiet that being homesick brought in me.
Yeah.
Long time.
And how do you feel now living so inland?
I really miss the sea. I feel sort of tearful about it sometimes. The coast, rock pools, that kind of awareness of the tides and the different way that the light is, and all the interesting things that particularly being on an island bring. But where we live has so many other good points to it that kind of balance off against that. And there's some good swimming places that are not the sea, but they're bodies of water that we've got here. Certainly got plenty of water around here.
Yeah. What brought you to Hebden Bridge, actually?
See, it's the people that live in this house here.
Oh, really, Ben?
Some friends that are writers.
Yeah.
Who I visited, just a short visit. And then I was back in London for a while, and I thought that I wanted to be somewhere a bit more rural, but still not all the way back in Scotland. Because I had, so I just came here, and I thought just for winter, I subletted a house. And then I met a nice Yorkshire man. Quite soon after that, I had a Yorkshire baby, and then another Yorkshire baby, and here I still am 5 years later, 6 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I remember the first time I saw you, because I don't think I realised that we lived on the same street. I think you were down by the river and you were heavily pregnant. But you looked effortlessly cool in you were wearing some kind of like fake fur jacket, and we're just wandering around, and I remember thinking I definitely didn't look like that when I was heavily pregnant. and then shortly after realised that we actually lived a few doors down from each other.
Small town.
Yeah.
There is quite a literary community in the valley.
Yeah.
There's the R1 Centre.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it does seem to.
Bronte's connection.
Of course, yes. It's funny, my connection to this house is the woman who they bought it from, Eileen. She's an actor.
Yes,
and
that's it, yeah.
I used to be her agent.
Yeah. Ah, right.
So. And now they've bought it.
Yeah.
It's a lovely home.
Yeah. It's such a nice spot.
With the fields. Oh gosh, imagine this every day.
There's been a barn all around here.
Oh really?
Look out for it in the evening, and there's. But yeah, it kind of feels like you're in the countryside, but you're actually right on the edge of town.
Yeah.
I have so many friends here now. Both there's the kind of literary people, and then there's the parents of small children.
Yes.
It's really nice, the community here.
Yeah, it is. I think that's what keeps us from seriously considering moving. I think is the people.
Yeah, I think we have similar feelings about the pros and cons of life here, don't we?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And this is the thing. I guess it's about figuring out how to make it work. Like just this, getting up high and getting some light.
Yes.
Each day.
Yeah, we don't have a garden, but we get the kids out a lot. We have the woods instead.
Exactly. Yeah. You've got the woods really on your back doorstep. I love this little patch. It feels like the magical woodland. where the light comes
At the
through them
turret.
there. Yeah. Also slightly lethal walking down here.
It's been so quiet.
Yeah, it's fine. It just...
Yeah, so I often come out for a walk in the late afternoon because that's when he's, when they can get grumpy and
Yeah.
he'll calm down. He'll come for a little circuit round. Can you hear all the woodpeckers, eh?
Oh yeah. Sounds like a creaking door.
Mm. I've got an idea that I want to build, or get Dom to build, an owl box. Because I hear the owls all the time, and apparently if you build a nesting box, one might come and nest in it and you can get an owl.
Really?
Well, apparently.
That seems very straightforward.
Yeah, no. I think you need to make it at the right height and in the right orientation and in the right sort of habitat. You have to think like an owl. Like if I was an owl, where would I be looking?
Yeah.
And would this be just what I needed? I have to wait a few years. But yeah.
But eventually the right owl might come.
That's my plan for the next few years, get an owl.
There's a woman around the corner from us who has a pigeon.
Right.
I think it flew into her bedroom one day by accident and has never left.
What's in her house?
It's in her house, yeah. Because I walked past and I saw she had this pigeon on her shoulder, and it was the healthiest, fattest, shiniest pigeon I've ever seen.
Everyone having a pet pigeon in their house.
I know. But yeah, it just flew in and she fed it and then it just stayed. She kept on trying to free it by taking it to the woods and it just would fly back to her.
Probably shits everywhere.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah. I feel very lucky to have spent the first full moon chatting with you this morning. The first full moon of 2022.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking me. Yeah.
What a beautiful walk.
It's turned out all right.
Well, even if it hasn't recorded anything, I had a lovely time.
Yeah. If it's not working,
The Outrun by Amy Liptrot is available to buy from all good bookshops, and The Instant is available for pre-order wherever you buy your books and will be published on the 3rd of March. You can also find Amy on Instagram and Twitter at Amy May. Please refer to the show notes for links. Thank you so much for listening to On the Irregular. Please make sure you review and subscribe as it helps other listeners find us.